welcome back to Structured Living. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how I set up our monthly budget with the income that we have coming into our house and how I decided to allocate those funds for our different envelopes that we use throughout the month. So stay tuned and find out how I do it. So this is just a simple Google Doc that I created, and remember that this might not work for you, and that's fine. You need to find what works best for you. I found that having an Excel sheet is a little too complex for me. All right, so basically what I did was I have my expenses here and my husband's expenses on the other side. We have all of our categories and all of the dollar values associated in those categories, as well as our income listed on the bottom. And this is our take-home pay. So this is after we pay health insurance, after we pay for retirement, and after taxes. And here you'll see our budget binder breakdown. So we weren't using a budget binder before, we were using cash envelopes. And while that really worked great for what we were working with at the time, our needs have started to change and we've needed to add more categories. And the set that I bought off of Amazon only had 6 colors, so I thought having 2 categories be the same color was a bit complicated. So we actually upgraded to a really cool system. All right, so then if you scroll down a bit, you see that I have my end of month check and my mid-month check, but I have with no car insurance and then with car insurance. And that's because some months I have to pay for car insurance, whereas others I don't. So my budget reflects all of the charges, all of the different scenarios that it could possibly have. And we scroll down a bit. Now it's my husband's. He actually gets paid every 2 weeks, so we're not on the same pay cycle, which gets a bit complicated, but it's still okay. We make the best of the situation. And inside, it's written with each check what is supposed to be paid, or what cash are we withdrawing out of that check. So I wanted to show you what we were using before. We have these really cool cash envelopes that I just created. They're just simple little plastic envelopes, and I just took a piece of printer paper, cut it out, wrote on it. But the problem that I found with this system is that, first of all, I wrote how much was supposed to be going into the envelope, but then after a while I realized that we needed less money in our social account and more money in other accounts. So this time around, I actually just put the title of the envelope rather than the title and how much was going into the envelope. So now I use a budget binder. Now those were just a few examples of the different categories we had. We had 6 in total, but for our budget binder, we actually have 10. And I broke up some of the categories to better reflect the spending that we are doing at this time, which is totally fine. Feel free to make adjustments as you go. So now this is just a clear plastic binder, and I really wanted something that was fun, vibrant, so it didn't look really weird pulling out my big, huge cash envelopes. And these are just some clear plastic envelopes. You see, I made these titles using my Cricut machine, and I'll touch on that in a later video, but it's actually really organized, and now I have separate accounts for absolutely everything. So for our food budget, we break that down into groceries and eating out. There's nothing in this because we're starting that next month. And then I have my envelope plus my self-care envelope, and then my husband has his. We have date money, our social money, medical, travel, gas, maintenance, and I also keep all of our receipts here. So this is a really good tool because now I just have to close it like this and I can take it with me on the go rather than bringing 6 different things like I've mentioned before. All right, so now let's get into some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way for budgeting. I'm gonna go ahead and refer to my own budget so you have a real life example to work with. So let's move on to the first tip. Budget to zero before the month begins. So what does that mean? That means you take your total income for that month, and ours stays the same every month, and you write all of your categories and you disperse your income until your income is zero. So for example, if you were to add all of these categories, you should get the total amount of $4,174. Tip number 2, if you're doing this with a partner, make sure to work together. It'll be so much easier if you guys are on the same page, and that way everybody knows what the game plan is. Tip number 3, note that every month is different. I mentioned that we have car insurance some months, but others we don't. So our budget reflects that. But remember, we do budget to zero no matter what the month looks like. Tip number 4, start with your basics. Your 4 basics are food, shelter, utilities, and transportation. Make sure that these 4 are well taken care of before moving on to any other category. Tip number 5, trim when you need to. So if you find that you're not putting in enough money for food and you also have a self-care envelope, take out the self-care for a few months and really beef up your food budget, no pun intended, or any other budget that you find is lacking. The beauty about handling your own budget means that you are in control of your money, and that's really important. Tip number 6, track your progress as you go along. So count your envelopes every so often. Look at your different resources, whether that's an Excel sheet, whether you created your own Google Doc, whatever that may be. Make sure that you're tracking things and keeping an eye on what your money is doing. Because remember, you want to have your money work for you, not the other way around. Tip number 7, create a buffer. So for us, you see here how I have written extra money, and again, that's with insurance, without insurance, because I like to make sure that I have excess money in the bank in case something goes wrong, or in case I forget an auto pay that I have that I didn't account for. Make sure you have a buffer in your account, and that can be with whatever you're comfortable with. It can be $1,000 or it can be $30. Whatever works, just make sure you have something for all of those little miscellaneous charges you might have. Tip number 8, have goals. What's your reason for doing this? Is it to pay off debt? Is it to change your family tree? What's your reason? Make sure it's a good enough reason that you're going to stick with this budget when things get hard, because it's a lot of work. You're writing things down. You're going to the ATM to pull out your cash. You're counting every dollar. You're counting every penny. It's a lot to keep track of. So make sure that your reason is strong enough to be able to withstand all of the hurdles. And lastly, this is kind of tied in to our last tip. Give yourself some grace. Budgeting is really hard. Some months it's going to be easy. Other months you want to just give up and blow your whole paycheck. It's okay to go through all of these ups and downs. So give yourself some grace. Pat yourself on the back. You're doing just fine. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and write a comment. I'd love to answer anything. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!